She wakes to the soft choreography of morning, the hush of an English spring filtering through thin curtains, the distant trill of birds over Windsor Great Park, and the weightless chorus of children above. Charlotte's bright peal answered by Lewis's irrepressible giggle, with George trying on authority like a blazer one size too big. Downstairs, the kettle hums toward a boil. Butter warms on a china dish and Kate sets a chipped pottery mug, George's lopsided creation that William refuses to retire, within easy reach. This is the private kingdom she has built with her hands. Bread in the toaster, shoes by the back door, ordinary love arranged with the precision of ritual. She hears the steps she knows by heart, 15 years of learning the language of a man's stride, and smiles before she turns. He looks as he does most mornings, hair sleep-ruffled, t-shirt soft with age, a face that relaxes only when the house is still. Then the phone rings, not the familiar tone that means family, not the brisk trill that means staff. The other one, the one that belongs to the palace and to history, to snowballing hours that change the color of a life. Her hand stills over the kettle. He glances at the screen and, in the length of a single breath, the man she loves steps behind older glass. Shoulders come square, jaw fixes, eyes draw tight. "Yes," he says, and the word has the clipped efficiency of corridors. "Yes, I understand. How long?" "I see, immediately, I understand. It is less than a minute." The kettle screams. Steam fogs the window as if the morning itself is startled into breathlessness. "What is it?" she asks, and her voice is calm in the way of people who have practiced composure as a craft. "My father," he says, and the word lands with a hairline crack he cannot hide. "The cancer, faster than anyone thought. They're saying weeks, not months. We have to go now. For a heartbeat, the world goes too bright. Butter gleams like talk show lights, dust motes look like snow." She turns off the kettle. The children laugh upstairs, holding still what is about to be taken from them before. She crosses to him, the practical tenderness of those small movements, hand to forearm, warmth to cold, covering things that don't have words. "Then we go," she says, and they do. The convoy moves like inevitability through London. Sirens are unnecessary. Everyone makes way for a car bracketed by duty and tinted glass. She sits close enough that their knees touch, her hand resting on his thigh in a steadying cadence he does not know he's keeping. Outside, the city behaves like itself. Cyclists lean into the light. A woman laughs on a corner, coffee and sunlight oblivious to the tilt in the street. A boy in a hoodie mouths lyrics to a song no one else can hear. On a tabloid rack, the headlines have already bloomed. Concern for the king, questions about the crown, the world guessing truths it shouldn't own. "I'm thinking about George," William says, still looking out. "He's 11. And there it is, the math of grief." He was 15 when the slow-motion catastrophe of his adolescence became final, and something inside him set like concrete in the cold. He promised himself a different arithmetic for his children, more seasons of pure childhood before the world pressed its thumb. "We will protect them," she says, and means it, knowing full well that protection, like all promises made under sovereign roofs, is a matter of degree. Clarence House opens the way old houses do, doors giving with that quiet sigh of weight and memory. The study smells of polished wood and sun-warmed dust, the hush of room after room absorbing the footsteps of people who make decisions. Portraits peer down, a century of faces painted to look like patients. The man behind the desk is both himself and a study in subtraction. The weight gone from his cheeks, the bright threads of determination woven tight through pain. His voice is thinner than last month, but steady with the grammar of command. There are the facts, arranged like numbered stones, the metastasis, the prognosis, the intention to abdicate not next season but now. He wants to move the machinery while he can still steer. A folder slides across the desk to a son who has carried its ghost for years. No one sits. The air has edges. And then there is the complication that isn't constitutional but will be televised anyway. Camilla by the window, posture like a locked door. Anne carved in composure. Edward with his discomfort rolling the ring around his finger. The debate is brief because the facts are not democratic. A life's battle between private love and public architecture is about to be decided by schedule, when legal text meets a woman's decades of survival in the tabloids. The room grows smaller. "Over my dead body," Camilla says, the line breaking like surf on stone, and the door slams. and the house registers the impact in the slightest shake of its frames. The king wins one last argument with his body and loses to the stubborn mercy of time. She'll come around, he says, and knows in his bones the difference between hope and calendar. They carry the folder out. They take it to a palace moving at double speed. The crisis borrows every stair, every carpet. Staff who trained for ceremonies pivot to triage. Phones ring in special rhythms. The private secretary speaks in sentences that stack and stack. The Prime Minister wants clarity. The Archbishop wants timeline. The Commonwealth wants words to call their capitals with. And over it all, the strangled truth. The Queen Consort refuses to vacate Clarence House. It is not a legal blockade. It is an optical one, which in a modern monarchy can be the same thing. "I'll go," Kate says before the calculus is finished. "Not you," someone begins, because deference has its own reflexes. "She won't hear him," Kate answers, gentle and firm in the way that lands as authority, before anyone's called it that. "She may hear me. They go at dusk, when light is kinder even to people who must do unkind things." The household staff look relieved in the way of people who have run out of instructions. The drawing room is the same room it has always been, except it isn't. Familiarity distort-warped by the knowledge of every lens outside. Camilla stands at the window, glass of wine like a prop in a play that has forgotten itself. When she turns, Kate sees the truth behind the armor. Eyes swollen with crying, jaw trembling with what dignity refuses to concede. The conversation is not about documents. It is about what it has cost a woman to stand in public for 30 years as a hate object, and then, at the end of the siege, to be told that the victory she thought she won is a pause, not a coronation. Kate does not pretend to know that landscape. She names what she does know. The monarchy's beautiful, brutal conversion of lives into symbols. The press's glinting appetite. The way love gets edited into one of two stories, saint or villain, by people who never met you. "You're not being erased," Kate says, because it is true, and also because truth needs help when grief is loud. But the Crown cannot plead feelings with a calendar. William adds the only argument that can move anything here: love. He names what Camilla has already paid. He promises that dignity can be preserved. Roles can be retained. Patronages can live under new letterhead. The condition, a condition not of law but of the delicate fiction that keeps a nation reassured, is cooperation. "Don't pretend," Kate says softly when the argument drops its armor and shows its wound. "Grieve as you must, but don't make his last days a fight with you." The shift is slight and final. When she says she will not make it easy, they don't ask her to. When she says she won't stand in the way, they take the gift as if it were oxygen. In the car, silence is the only respectful language. Dawn in London is an honest light. It makes everything look like itself, especially on days that will be remembered. The media have been tipped. They always are. The choreography is arranged to save what can be saved. He arrives against doctor's orders because he is stubborn and sentimental in equal measure, and he refuses to let the end of a chapter be written by a security directive. He asks instead, "Please don't let the last picture be the worst one." She does the hardest work inside a body. Composure is armor you have to lift with both hands. She removes her jewelry one by one, reducing the visual grammar of rank until the woman is visible. Sunglasses on indoors are a shield, not a fashion. 2 guards flank her like punctuation that says escort, not arrest. The cameras take their pound, because that is what cameras do. She walks into history with her head high, and if you listen, really listen, you hear the sound that doesn't make the evening news, the grief note beneath applause and jeer, the keening of a dream that kept someone alive through a very long winter. Inside, a son steadies a father's shaking hands. The page turns because the page must. St. James's Palace has seen 5 centuries of decisions that pretended they were simple. Today it hosts a first, an abdication managed without chaos, a succession assisted by the man still wearing the ring. The chamber fills with the machinery of continuity, a calligraphy of titles, the careful placing of phrases that hit the ear like scripture. The words that needed lawyers find the oak table, the signatures that make fictions into facts follow the pen. He hears his name become a number. He feels the weight arrive, not as a cloak dropped onto shoulders, but like gravity that was always there becoming noticeable. The oath is older than the people who speak it, and more fragile for having survived this long. He says the words and becomes the words. She hears the proclamation that changes the way strangers will say her name. The bowing happens in waves. In the dark corner of a side room, a man in pain watches his son become the job at last and lets himself cry because there isn't time later. The balcony scene is the same and changed. Flags answer sky. The chant rises, old syllables finding new throats. He raises a hand in acknowledgement. She stands steady, the smile that monarchy uses when it says everything and nothing. Somewhere inside the fabric of her dress is the smallest squeeze of fingers where cameras cannot see. Together, it says in a pressure point language, and she answers in kind. What the cameras don't show is the administrative avalanche that follows a coronation without a funeral. Red boxes thud onto a new desk. Briefings arrive in sheaves. The phone will not stop. Gibraltar needs a sentence that will be read like a paragraph. Commonwealth leaders want signals. A Prime Minister wants alignment. William looks for a moment like a man who would like to call his father for advice and cannot. So we buy a day, she says, the suggestion clean and practical. Context first, statements later. He sees what his grandmother knew. Reigns are built of small, well-chosen pauses. They move into Buckingham because they must, and the children come with them like light you can carry. Louis tests the echo and laughs at the building, throwing his voice back at him. Charlotte wants to go home to a room that smelled like laundry and crayons, not history. George stands in a doorway, half boy and half outline of the man he will be, and asks the question no one his age should have to ask, which room is mine, when every room feels like a museum. She chooses with him, touching doorknobs, testing window light, making the abstract into something his bones can trust. You put books on a shelf. You pin a drawing to a corkboard. You tell a child he can still dislike Brussels sprouts and mean it. At dinner, when a table for 30 makes 5 look like a handful of punctuation, George asks in the careful tone of someone who understands more than grown-ups tell him, "If something happens to you, Dad, am I next?" The silence is so loud it feels physical. William kneels at his son's chair, a father first and a king after, and promises the trick no one writes down: you can be both. He says the name that hovers, Diana, and refuses the myth with tenderness. She didn't have enough people around her. You do. We will not let the role take you. Eyes brim and arms tangle, and for a quiet minute the crown looks exactly like a family holding in the middle of a room built for sovereignty. Later she stands in a room that still breathes Elizabeth. Furniture gone, presents not. She lays her hand flat to a wall and speaks aloud the small prayer every woman who has married into this building has said in some form. Let me be strong in ways that don't make me hard. The room, faithful to its vocation, keeps her secret and returns nothing but quiet. Life does what life always does. It accumulates hours, and 6 months stitch themselves together. Habits form. George scores a goal and learns how to be pleased without worrying about the camera that might be in the bushes. Charlotte finds a teacher who sees the angle in her drawings and speaks to her like a peer. Louis campaigns for a puppy with the unstoppable optimism of 7. William begins to sit differently in meetings. The shoulders that were trying to become a throne find their posture. He laughs more often. She catches his face in unguarded moments and sees a man learning to be king without forgetting he is himself. A Sunday evening at Windsor, pasta and arguments about movies, a reprieve built into a calendar that has precious little softness. Then the knock. Security at the private door. Your Majesty, someone insists on seeing you. He is already bracing because knocks after 7 should not happen. They go to the hall together. The door stands a crack open, and behind it a silhouette waits in the wash of floodlights. The woman steps forward into sight, and time tilts. She has a voice you know from recordings, a mouth that remembers how to make the smile the nation still carries in its pocket, eyes with an ache the tabloids never learned to read. Impossible, William says, and says it like a fact he expects the world to respect. But impossibility comes in wearing a face that has lived on magazines, and it speaks. Surprise, she says, like someone who is used to saying a first line and watching a room stop breathing. Kate's hand finds his and locks like a clasp, not because she needs him to bear her weight, but because that is the promise they made. Pressure language. Together, even when the ground moves. The door swings wider, the hall inhales and holds. Whatever they were building, whatever plans penciled into a calendar already too full, will now be tested in a way schedules do not cover. What history is, in the end, are rooms like this, private, ordinary, vaster than they seem, where a family chooses who it wants to be while the nation thinks it is watching a show. Days earlier, a different door opened and closed, and the monarchy turned a clean page. But clean pages never stay that way. Pens leak, hands smudge. She knows this and steadies herself anyway. She has learned to translate urgency into tempo, to take fear and slow its breathing, to remember that statements are short but consequences are long. She steps half a pace forward, not to shield him and not to be shielded, but to stand exactly where a partner stands. It began with a kettle in a quiet kitchen. It will continue in rooms that smell of leather and old paper and fresh flowers brought in to make cameras feel welcome. The work is not a crown and a wave. It is a clause negotiated, a child reassured, an old man's hand held so he can fall asleep without thinking about headlines. It is resisting the temptation to become either saint or statue. It is remembering to put on boots and walk in the rain with your daughter and let your hair get ruined and not mind. News cycles will calcify today's rumor into tomorrow's narrative and call it history. That is their job. Hers is to stand next to a man whose name is now a prayer shouted on parade grounds and whispered in meeting rooms, and to carry, with ordinary strength, the rope that ties the symbol to a kitchen table. If you do that work honestly and quietly enough for long enough, people stop asking whether love belongs in the same sentence as duty. They simply see that the sentence makes better sense when it does. So she breathes in, steady as the tick of a gilded clock, and prepares again, to absorb, to decide, to forgive, to insist. The morning that felt like a gift became the phone call that broke a pattern. The pattern became a new life. The new life is already asking for more than any single person should have to give. She will give it anyway, in parcels measured out, across school runs and state dinners, in glances across rooms, in the pressure of fingertips hidden from lenses. She will make private vows in public spaces and live them where no one sees. She will be the long memory in a family learning to be itself under 1,000 eyes. Outside somewhere, the chant will rise again, as chants do, long live. Inside, a child will announce he has found a beetle and demand that someone important come see. The king will close his eyes for a second too long and open them with an apology no one will accept because he doesn't owe it. The phone will trill with the tone that belongs to days that refuse to behave. She will answer, or he will, and the world will move again on its worn hinges. They will make tea. They will sign papers. They will tell the truth gently and lie only when kindness asks for it. They will remember birthdays. They will forget to defrost something for dinner and send a private secretary to solve it. And then laugh later at the ridiculousness of power when what you needed was peas. The camera will choose its angle. The nation will choose its mood. The crown will do what it has always done, endure by becoming, become by enduring. And in rooms without microphones, where echo turns children's games into symphonies, a woman who once just wanted a quiet kitchen will stand in the doorway of her new life, learn the shape of it by touch, and walk forward anyway. Chin lifted, eyes clear, heart open and armored all at once, into the work of holding a family steady, while the story around them changes shape. The phone will ring again. The knock will come again. Someone else will require a word that cannot be said publicly. Someone across the world will need the reassurance of a phrase she crafts at a table with her husband and a pencil, because pencils erase, and sometimes you need that grace. She will say no when no is what protects the center. She will say yes to the things that can be borne. She will stand upright when standing is all that can be done, and sit on the floor in a child's room when that is better statecraft than any communique. In the hush after impossible steps over a threshold, after that familiar voice puts the past on the table like a delicate, breakable thing, she inhales and hears again the call that began it all. Weeks, not months. The math that first tipped their lives on in different numbers now. Schedules, polling, timetables, inboxes measured in inches. She file-folders it inside her chest, the way you keep a note you can't throw out. And then she does what she has learned to do better than most people alive. She looks at the person she loves most, and at the person who has returned like a rumour made flesh, and finds the line that is both human and sovereign, both kind and firm. The line that will let the day end without breaking the night. The line that will hold until morning, when children will shout hello down a corridor to listen to the echo, and breakfast will smell like home inside a palace, and the crown, strange, heavy, mythic, will balance, once again on the smallest, steadiest things,